Story 1. Not me, but a medical resident who I met on rotation recently. One of the nicest guys I have ever met, super intelligent and hardworking, and training to be a trauma surgeon, as humble as they come. He had been married for 2 years to his wife. One night, he gets off a 30-hour call early and heads home to surprise his wife with some flowers and her favorite dessert. It was the anniversary of the day they first met, only to find her in bed with a random dude. He was so exhausted and confused, he didn't know what to do and just left and went back to the hospital. I saw him at 5 a.m. sitting in the parking lot, hunched over, crying. He didn't even have his phone with him. He was just sitting there. Man, nothing breaks your heart more than seeing a grown man cry. It's not something you see often. We called his dad and he came and picked him up. The guy ended up taking a leave from his residency. Turns out, it wasn't the wife's first time sleeping around. Hope he gets back on his feet. He will make an amazing physician. Why do awful people always take advantage of the sweetest ones? I hope that dude finds a woman who appreciates his thoughtfulness. Story 2. On family vacation, I picked up his phone because I was bored and the kids were playing on mine. Saw a message to some girl describing the and I had the night before. Spent the rest of the vacation fighting via text while trying and failing to act normal. Story 3. Friend of mine was hanging out with some guys at a bar and went home to chill with them. He asked how they knew my girlfriend at the time. Realized she was a mutual friend at the bar. Guy said she was buddies with his friend. My friend was confused and mentioned she was the girlfriend of a friend of his, me, to which his response was, "Oh, I hope you're not good enough friends to have to tell him." Story 4. College girlfriend, and we lived together for a year after I realized she would always have her phone on silent or just plain ignore calls from Jennifer. One day, I write down the number and call it a week later. It ends up being her other boyfriend who she had never broken up with before she came to college. Neither of us knew about each other, and she had been visiting him when she went home to see her parents on some weekends and breaks. Broke up soon after, and her mom said that sometimes you just have to accept things, and how I owed her an apology for breaking up with her. It gets worse, but that was the gist. Story 5. Walked in on my girlfriend while she was having with another guy. "What are you doing here?" she says. "You gave me a key, remember? I ended up not working today and wanted to surprise you." 15 years later, she reaches out, leaves me a message that she'd like to talk. I figure she's doing some 12-step thing or something and wants to make amends. Nope, she wanted to try and sell me on Amway. Story 6. Mount St. Augustine erupted in Alaska in 1986. They had to evacuate all planes out of Elmendorf AFB due to ash in the air. This sent my unit home from Korea 3 days early. I got home at 2 a.m. and there was a guy sleeping next to my wife in our bed. Story 7. Found my wife's notebook. Written on the first page was a 10-step plan detailing how she was going to leave me for another guy. I turned it into 1 step. Story 8. I just got off work after working the graveyard shift. I walked into my apartment with my fiance riding some guy she met at a party on my futon, which they broke. I walked out with so much rage and broken feelings, I went to my car and just cried. Story 9. Woke up to her on her phone with hearts scrolling in Facebook Messenger. We were married for 7 years at that point. 2 kids. It was my birthday. I won't feign total innocence. Marriage is hard. I was working and in school full-time so she could be a stay-at-home mom, which was our goal. She realized she wanted something else and moved on. Happens. Roll with the punches. I won't feign total innocence. You being busy and allowing her to stay home with your child isn't anything you should be blaming yourself for. It sounds like you were working hard for your family. If she was unhappy, she should have said something. Please do not blame yourself for that. Story 10. Came home early. They were fast enough to get dressed, but not in a natural state of being, if that makes sense. It was obvious something was just going down. Very cliched, got walked in on and tried to play it cool like you've seen on TV. I asked him to leave, and he did. We argued. She tried to lie, but soon confessed. It wasn't the first time she cheated, but it was the first time that I caught her in the act. Everything in the past was just texts and stuff. She said that she never slept with other people and it was just pics and flirting. In retrospect, that may not be BS. We divorced, both remarried. Not friends by any stretch, but civil. Story 11. Went to log into email, and a suggested one that I did not recognize popped up. I answered all his security questions and reset his password to find emails between him and the neighbor. We were in therapy to recover from him cheating with her, and there they were, waxing poetic about their love and when I'd be out of the house so they could be together. The actual horror is that our 7-year-old daughter was the one who accidentally caught them originally by walking into our bedroom while I was at work. Story 12. I was at Disney with our kids on day 2 of a 7-day family trip. Her father had been, by that point, talking up for about 7 years. He and her mother told us when the kids were born they were going to take us all to Disney when they turned 7. And 7 years later, it finally happened. At that point, we'd been together for over a decade, had a great job, a house, a bunch of kids, and the full-on 100% honest-to-goodness American dream. Life was grand, until I picked up her phone to set an alarm on night 2 of our family vacation of a lifetime. There were so many texts, so many. I remember actually wanting to hurt her and having to leave the room. I immediately called the number and heard some strange dude answer with a sleepy, "Hello, darling. Glad to hear from you." I wanted to die. The sense of unreality that I experienced. It was immediately numbing. Like I'd just switched to the dark timeline. All I could think was, from this point on, everything that I have known about myself is going to change. Story 13. Girlfriend ran over her phone by accident and destroyed the screen. Asked me to back up all her stuff and transfer it to her new Pixel. Use backup tool that captures all sorts of messages and with another guy. Story 14. Obligatory not me, but a friend. And I've posted this story twice before. Early 2000s, my friend's husband was deployed to Iraq. Together, they had a 10-year-old son and a happy marriage. One day, while he was deployed, I was at home when another one of our friends called and screamed, "Holy turn on the news right now." I turned it on to watch a human interest story about a fundraiser at a high school 30 miles away. They're doing Relay for Life or something, and as a surprise to one of the participants, they had her husband and father of her 2 grade school children do a video call from Iraq and displayed it on the football jumbotron. There, on our local news, is my friend's husband telling another woman and 2 kids how he loves them and can't wait to get back home to them. The news eats it up about what a great guy he is. That night, our group of friends convened and decided how we would tell her. I was nominated, so the next day I had to sit her down and tell her what we saw. She called the news station, and they were happy to let her come in and watch the story. They were also incredibly apologetic. Story has a somewhat crappy ending, I'm afraid. She called him out on his BS. They started divorce proceedings, and he went on to legally marry the mother of his other kids, and mostly ignored his son from the first marriage. Story 15. I dated this girl a few years back, and I became really good friends with her brother just because he appreciated my help during a difficult time for their family. Their father had abruptly passed away. 2 years into the relationship, the brother contacts me and asks to meet up for coffee and a serious conversation. Apparently, he caught his own sister with another guy, mutual friend of ours, and this had been going on for like a year. As soon as he found out, I was told. Broke up with her. Still friends with her brother. Go figure. My own sister and mother didn't tell me when my spouse was cheating on me, and they knew. Of course they knew, because he was cheating on me with my mother's best friend. If I ever feel guilty of ditching my family for good, I just have to remember that. The best part? When I confronted my mother, her exact words were, "If you are so stupid you can be cheated like that, you deserve to be cheated." That brother was a really good guy. Story 16. I returned from work on Xmas Eve. We had tickets to a festival which started the day before New Year's Eve, and I couldn't find the tickets anywhere after seeing them the month before. I decided to double-check the trash before we put it out for collection. I found a used them. We lived on our own. Story 17. Caught my now ex-husband. Something was way off. I was 6 months pregnant with our second child, and my best friend at the time was also off. Picked up his phone at 2 a.m. when it went off, and found a secret password-locked messenger. Go Messenger. Password was his birthday. Real winner. I found over 7,000 messages along with photos, some insinuating I was present with either one of them while they were messaging. I was upset and woke him up. He locked himself in the bathroom and pulled the attempted card. There's another year of trying to work it out after this incident, but I'm so glad that chapter in my life is over. Story 18. Came back from a trip 4 hours early. Wife was supposed to be at work still. Opened the front door to see her sitting on the couch making out with a coworker. He ran out the door. She ran into a bathroom and locked the door. Sat on that couch for about an hour because I couldn't think of anything else to do. Finally just up and left, so she could come out of the bathroom and put a shirt on. Story 19. My girlfriend and I were long distance, and she had a habit of going quiet sometimes. She'd been texting me for the last few weeks, but had made excuses not to come visit. I went to a party that my friend had organized. I met a friend of his who told me he had a new girlfriend. I was surprised he hadn't mentioned her, so I asked who she was. This lady introduced me to my girlfriend. She'd told everyone that we broke up and had been dating my friend for about a month. She didn't bother to tell me. Story 20. Long story short, I suspected something for a few months. Like an idiot, I opened her phone while she was asleep and found exactly what I was looking for, like you always do when searching through someone else's phone. Even with all of the texts right there to see, she still lied about it multiple times. She eventually admitted to it, but downplayed it heavily. She told me about 2 nights ago that he asked her out on a date and she said, "I had to say no," and was visibly sad about it. In the process of getting a divorce now. Hurts like hell. Story 21. One of my former coworkers loaded in an SD card with a scanned project file on it. He put it into the conference room PC where we were treated to pics of his wife and another guy. We were just stunned. This was in a senior budgetary meeting with the outside accountants and auditors, and he was sitting right there and we were looking at his wife and another guy going at it. I reached over and shut the projector off. Nobody said a thing. He got up and walked out and drove off in his car, left his phone and laptop sitting on the table. He wound up driving to his parents' house 3 states away. He was gone for a week. Story 22. Dropped her off at home, went inside to use the bathroom, and found a in the trash. We hadn't been using for a bit. That one hurt for some time. She claimed it's not used. LOL, what? As bad as I wanted to make a scene and call her everything possible, I just proceeded to leave the place and never look back. Story 23. Had my suspicions for a couple of months, but no evidence or anything. My ex lived about 40 miles from me, and we were 18. Dated and went to high school together for 3 years. She would come down into the city on weekends to spend time with me. I knew she had another group of friends in her town, and a few were guys, which didn't bother me. But I woke up in the middle of the night and messaged her on Facebook, only to notice she had been tagged in a photo with one of her friends. He was holding her up and kissing her. It was his new profile picture. I messaged the guy and calmly asked what was going on. He immediately responded and was confused. We decided to meet up for coffee the next morning that my ex was over. And the look on her face was priceless when she saw him walk in and sit beside me. She begged for our forgiveness and claimed she loved us both. Turned out it had been going on for 7 months. And that every time she left my place during the weekends, she was returning home to him for the week. Me and the other guy are now best friends and share a house with my fiancé and his girlfriend. You, Taylor. Story 24. I found out my ex-boyfriend, dated from 15 to 18, had been cheating on me when, upon walking into the apartment, he shared with his mother and 2 elementary-age sisters. The youngest sister asked me, "When did you leave?" I asked her, "When was I here?" She responded, "You were here all night. I could hear you talking to X's name." I had not been there for 2 days at that point. I asked him what she was talking about, and he blew bubbles for a few minutes before confessing. Good riddance. Story 25. Her phone got a text from her friend who was in the kitchen with her, so I assumed one of them sent it to me. Opened her phone to see a Her friend doesn't have a Now I'm divorced and don't trust texts from my friends. Story 26. My cousin was visiting us for a long weekend. She and I were super close, like sisters. I went upstairs to put the baby to bed and came back down to them going at it on the couch. So yeah, that was fun. Story 27. One day my husband was getting ready for work and I saw him packing his GoPro case so he could take it to work. I thought, that's weird. Why would he be taking it to work? So when he jumped into the shower, I replaced his GoPro with mine and thought I'd look through the files when he leaves for work. My suspicions were on alert because he had just taken a trip to the PI with some friends. A guys-only weekend kind of thing. Fire up the camera and find 3 videos. Lo and behold, there he is in all his glory, barebacking a Filipino prostitute, looking and posing for the camera like he's some star. I was enraged, but also looking at this fool acting like he's a adult film star was hilarious. Story 28. I met this girl who was working the late shift at a drugstore. We flirted a few times, eventually exchanged numbers, and started sleeping together. After a few weeks, she invited me to go drinking at this crappy little bar she liked in the north side of the city. So we spend the night dancing together, drinking, and talking to people she knows. Eventually, a guy comes up to me saying, "Great to meet you finally. Congratulations on the engagement." "What are you talking about?" I replied, laughing as I choked on my drink a bit. Guy gives me a quizzical look and says, "You're here with Corey. It's Paul, right?" I raised an eyebrow and pointed a thumb to my chest, stating, "Nah, man, name's Kyle." We stared at each other, watching each other realize what was playing out on this fateful night. Corey was engaged to a guy named Paul. I was the other guy. Paul worked out of town for a few weeks at a time. It was actually interesting how you literally could see the word travel around the small bar, drastically changing the vibe in the room. We left shortly after. She brought me, the guy she was cheating on her fiancé with, to her favorite bar. She brought me to a place full of friends that at least knew her well enough to know she was engaged to a guy named Paul, not Kyle. Messed up stuff. Didn't see her again after that. According to Facebook, Paul and Corey are currently married. Story 29. Boyfriend finally convinced me to have a threesome after months of begging. I finally agree and our mutual friend comes over. Things get hot and heavy, and when he starts her, he moans, "Damn, you feel even better than usual." Everyone freezes. He tries to tell me that he was thinking about my while her, and that it just felt differently. But she felt so guilty that she confessed on the spot and begged me to forgive her. We don't really talk anymore, but last I heard, she had been dating my ex for over a year. Story 30. Not my relationship, but my boyfriend's mom took me out to lunch to get to know me better. We really kicked it off and had a great lunch. She had to run home because she forgot to grab a gift for a shower we had to attend after, and we found her husband the neighbor on the couch. She was mortified and never the same around me again. Her son and I split because of that. He didn't think his dad was wrong because